I've done a lot of practice runs, so I apologize if I can't make it concise like my other videos. I've tried. Can't do it. Just the topic's just too big to make it concise. Yes, my beliefs right now. My beliefs right now, to put it really simply, is non-ideological, utilitarian, pragmatic, realpolitik kind of view. I think that there's some benefit to ideologies in terms of looking at some of their values and ideas, but that ideology should be avoided. Hence why I go for more of a pragmatic, utilitarian, realpolitik approach and reject ideology. So I suppose you could say that my view is the perfect moderate, with no inconsistencies. But here's my problem with ideology. My two problems. One is I believe that ideology and religion, to be honest, both lend themselves towards extremism, even if the majority of the people who believe in that religion or ideology are not themselves extremists. It's because they simply haven't gone down the no contradiction road. You see, if you take a religion or an ideology, and I'm really focusing on ideology here, if you want to believe in it without any contradiction, with 100%, or I suppose that'd look like this to you, consistency, you're going to end up in extremism somehow. I don't see how you can follow any ideology or religion 100% consistently, no contradictions with any of the books or beliefs, and not end up in some kind of extremism in the end. And the problem is that the extremism always tries to take the ideal world, which is where ideology tends to start, and tries to superimpose it onto the real world where it doesn't work. There's too many variables that the ideology doesn't take into consideration. Hence why I believe that all forms of extremism lead to dictatorship. For instance, communism and libertarianism both lend themselves to this extremism really well. And if you want to follow either communism or libertarianism with no contradiction, you end up trying to superimpose this ideal world onto the real world, and you always end up in a dictatorship. For instance, I believe communism will always lead to Soviet Unions, Mao Zedongs, and stuff like that. And libertarianism, actually, I don't believe in the Somali argument. The Somali argument against libertarianism is stupid and does not understand what libertarianism is, because what libertarianism would end in, as I believe it would always lend itself to extremism, would be Pinochet's Chile or modern day Russia. So libertarianism in the extreme would not end in Somalia, but rather in a situation in which the rich take over the country and then nominate one of their own to be the dictator of that country. So hence, like, libertarianism lends itself to extremism, and then eventually would end in something like Pinochet's Chile. If you don't know Pinochet's Chile, he was a right-wing dictator who took over Chile and installed laissez-faire capitalism. But yeah, so both of those ideologies, I think, lend themselves to extremism, which starts an ideal and then flips into the real world and institutes a dictatorship to try to make it work in the real world, even though it doesn't. So that's my problem with that, with ideology. Lends itself to extremism, and then I believe it always threatens to create a dictatorship. And you may retort with something like, well, sometimes you do need to change everything, like feudalism. The thing is, feudalism didn't die in a single massive ideological revolution, but rather it was a gradual process of change over time that led to a period of revolutions to really just to finalize the beliefs that everyone already had, finalize the changes that had already been made to the society. So you didn't need extremist ideologies. In fact, my beliefs, I think, would lead itself to that without the extremism. So what are my beliefs now? They can be summarized in two beliefs that work together, and then realpolitik. So pragmatism. Pragmatism is the idea that you start in the real world. You don't start in the ideal world like ideologies, but you start looking at the world as it is. And you look at it as it is and think in terms of what will work, what we know will work, what we have proof will work already. So it's an inchworm strategy, I have to admit. It's about moving things slowly in the direction of where you want to go, rather than trying to make things go there really fast. So you look at what little things here and there you can do to move things And it goes really well with utilitarianism, which you have to be careful with utilitarianism, because utilitarianism itself can turn into an ideology. Utilitarianism is the greatest good for the greatest number. That is, you make your decisions based on what will make everyone better off, or the most people most off. It can become an ideology because you can take it too far to where it stops being pragmatic and starts being stuff like, okay, well, it would be utilitarian if we just killed everyone who was offensive, because now everyone's not offended anymore and they feel better because they're not offended. Like, that would be dumb. That would be utilitarianism turn into an ideology. It would go down that track of ideology, extremism, dictatorship. So you have to be careful with utilitarianism. That's why I think tying it with pragmatism would help, because it's not pragmatic to do that. One, it's actually difficult to come up with why it would be unpragmatic, because pragmatic starts in the real world, so we'd have to know the real case in the situation. That's why it's kind of difficult to talk about pragmatism, because it's so unideological. It doesn't start in an ideal, it starts in how things are. But in general, you could probably think in terms of how it would be unpragmatic. Like in the United States, it'd be unpragmatic to offend everyone who's offensive, because it would end up going too far. It's just it'd be an unworkable system that would turn into dictatorship. So it's unpragmatic, even if it might be utilitarian. Hence why tying the two together can really work together. And also, when it comes to defining what is pragmatic, it helps to have utilitarianism there, because you can define what counts as pragmatic in terms of what will help the most people. Hence why they work together really well, I think. In terms of politics, this, I believe, would fit itself in realpolitik. Realpolitik is the non-ideological political position. Realpolitik is always willing to compromise, but still holds its goals. It holds on to the goals. But it's always willing to compromise and work with others to achieve goals. So I really believe in realpolitik. It's just, of course, there's always going to be compromise. So the problem is that, like, ideally, the United States should have socialized healthcare. Now you can tell just how unlibertarian I am now. That was a phase of mine. So ideally, we would have socialized healthcare, but we can't get to that yet. So the realpolitik position would be Obamacare as a movement, as like a move towards the right direction, through compromising and trying to work with everyone to move things in the right direction. Hence why I'm a real big fan of Obama. I voted for Obama. I would vote for him again if it was legal for him to be in a third term. I'm a big fan. I really don't understand why more people aren't a fan of his. Because I understand that Obamacare is not great, but compared to what came before, and compared to the direction things are going with it, it's good. It's good in the long run. But you have to understand you can't just go from where we were earlier to socialized healthcare in one jump. So I actually think it was good. It was a good move. I would just personally prefer to live in the future. Like if I can go back and choose when to be born, I'd prefer to be born 100 years from now, when pragmatism has really taken us further. But yeah, that's my views now. I'm against ideology. Ideology is useful to reference, so ideology is not totally useless. I think it's worth looking at, but you should understand the limits of it. Stay away from extremism, and accept a kind of realpolitik, pragmatic, utilitarian kind of sentiment. That's all.